The information provided is not a substitute for legal and other professional advice where the facts and circumstances warrant. People should always consult their own legal or other professional advisors and discuss the facts and circumstances that apply to their specific circumstances. The information shared on Ask the Landlord is for educational purposes only.
Hello to everyone listening out there. We're back with another episode of Ask the Landlord with our favorite landlord, Albert Dweck. I'm Melissa. I'm one of Albert's producers and a former New York City, Pittsburgh, Lafayette, and Washington, D.C. renter. And together, we're going to be asking this landlord some questions. If you have a question for Albert, you can leave a voicemail on our new hotline, Ask the Landlord, at 646-580-3015. We want to hear your questions. But today, here's a question for Albert. If I have a small business, can I operate that business out of my apartment?
That's a great question, Melissa. Thanks for asking it. And I think today, when, especially after the pandemic and people working from home, which is a very common thing, I think people have questions like, oh, can I make stuff at home? Can I sell it? Whatever.
What's allowed?
Yeah. And in general, I think, it's a residential space, right? Let's say that up front, right? And I think it's expected that you're going to live there. And I use the statement like have a light footprint, right? Light footprint, meaning, you got to consider your neighbors, the building, the place you live. I could imagine, I'm just saying, I'm making up something, but let's say you have an apartment in a building and let's say it's like, I don't know, 8-unit building. And, let's say you have a 1-bedroom apartment and you're a therapist. Let's just say, I'm just made this up. And now you have people, and then you decided that you don't have a waiting room, but you want to have people waiting in the hallway. So now you set up chairs in the hallway. I'm like, do you think your neighbors want to have people walk, that they don't know sitting in the hallway waiting to come into your apartment? Like you've essentially taken over, more of the building to have your professional office. I'm like, on the one hand, I think you could work from home, right? On the other hand, you want to be considerate of your neighbors, right? So I think that's a theme. So I think going into it, if you're doing something that's out of the ordinary or that is going to require attention or draw attention, you want to communicate that with your landlord up front to say, listen, I work from home. I'm very good. I did this. I do this. And, I have, let's say if I'm making something, I ship some things from the house. Okay. But you got to realize, I know now in my house now, when Amazon comes, I say shipping and receiving because the guy brings like 6 boxes, right?
Uh-huh.
And you're like shipping and receiving. I'm like, this is like a warehouse over here. And we're like, there's 3 people ordering stuff. Who cares? But
Right.
What I'm saying to you is like, if you have 30 boxes you're shipping out, it's like a little bit crazy,
Right.
So managing that and its impact on your people around you and the building itself, that's something to be, cognizant of. You want to have a good relationship with your neighbors. You want to have a good relationship with your landlord. You want to make sure that you're not overstepping your bounds as a tenant in the building. Because not only are you living in a symbiotic relationship with your landlord, right? You're also in a symbiotic relationship with your residents that are also living in the building and your neighbors. So it's like nobody wants that kind of a thing in their house, for example, like to some extent, right? I recall there was a lady and she was she rented a house for the summer in this vacation spot area where it's fine. Like people rent, for the couple months of the summer, they rent. Okay. So she was doing a catering business and a very popular catering business outside her house. So for a couple days a week, the street would be packed with cars, double parked, picking up outside.
Oh my
And people
God.
and the town was like, what the heck is going on here? There's this is not what is this? You can't, you're not, it's like, it's obtrusive.
It's disruptive.
Disruptive. So I think this stuff in general is okay as long as you communicate it and understand there's a context in which it's happening. Now, hopefully at some point the business becomes big enough that it warrants having its own space or something like that, fine, or some other arrangement that you could make with the landlord. Maybe you could pay extra. Maybe there's a space to have a waiting room, let's say in the building that we discussed, or maybe there's a way to handle that where you say you're going to have to plan for the traffic if you're delivering something, whatever. But these are things that need to be spoken, communicated, and really, if you're a resident in the building, for example, and you have a person that's prolific, making stuff and is popular all of a sudden and doing stuff, you're like, there's always someone ringing the bell, and maybe ringing the wrong bell or whatever. It bothers you. It's like it could be a nuisance. So it's important to understand how people live together to create a good working living environment first, working environment second, because there are other people who live there, right? And most often now, people go to other places to work and they want to come home to a peaceful, quiet, happy enjoyment kind of a place. Now, but today, as you know, people work from home, and there's all kinds of businesses that people can do from home, and that's fine. But you also need to figure out the logistics of impact to your community, impact to the building, impact to the neighbors, to the landlord. How is that going to work?
Right. Like, let's say someone wants to just start making hot sauces, for example, and they just do that. The smell of like peppers and vinegar could resonate through the whole building and like burn people's eyes.
That's a problem. I mean, that's
right. That would not be a good idea.
That's a problem, if it affects other people. So
right. So you have to really pay attention to that.
Yeah, those are things you need to pay attention to. So working from home is fine, considering the impact is I've had tenants who work from home and were concerned about certain noises that were going on, and it wasn't, the apartment necessarily wasn't conducive for that during the day, for whatever reason in that room. So you have to also plan that. Like if you're a tenant and you're like, oh, I want to run my business and this is this, and just how is that going to happen? Like you should plan that. Like, oh, I'm going to live here. This is what I'm going to do. Oh, and if I get deliveries, this is how it's going to work. If I have to ship stuff, this is where it's going to go. Think about it.
Right. Maybe get a P.O. box.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think if you're communicative, as we always say, with, in the Ask the Landlord is, yes, it's great to work from home. Consider your impact on the community, your residents, your co-residents, the landlord, the building, for your safety, being considerate. It's important to be communicative, as we always say, and be thoughtful because you're all living together and you want it to be a nice, happy place.
Absolutely. That was a great close. Thank you so much, Albert. And again, everyone listening, if you have a question for Albert, leave us a voicemail on our Ask the Landlord hotline. The number is 646-580-3015. We cannot wait to hear your questions, or reach out to Albert at Ask the Landlord on Instagram. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
For more episodes, please subscribe to Ask the Landlord on your favorite podcast platform. We'd appreciate it if you left a review on Apple Podcasts. If you'd like to watch the show, check out our Ask the Landlord YouTube channel. If you have a question for Albert, feel free to contact him on Instagram at Ask the Landlord, and check out his TikTok at Ask the Landlord. Bridging the gap between landlords and tenants, this has been Ask the Landlord. Thanks for listening.